Distinguished guests, delegates, colleagues and friends of the ANU National Security College, thank you, Professor Brown, for your message and your leadership of this university, this great Australian institution that is hosting this vital dialogue today. I also thank Paul Giroir House for his generous welcome to country to this special meeting place. I acknowledge country and pay respects to the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people and their elders past, present and emerging. I would say that a recognition of its own history without fear and in full is a basic condition for a nation to be reconciled, resilient, cohesive and ready for the future. So it is right, as my colleague Tim has pointed out, that one of the three landmark reports that will inform our conference is a study of First Nations perspectives on security, a study particularly in Indigenous communities across Northern Australia and in the Torres Strait. And it's about the importance of protecting and defending country, culture, community. Those will be familiar themes throughout the next 2 days. Thank you all for being here for our conference, Securing Our Future, a Ready and Resilient Australia. Now, as the map behind me suggests, and just to be aware, this map is not merely some work of art. It shows precisely the locations that our teams went to around the country over the past 2 years on these consultations. As that map suggests, our meeting here is both an end and a beginning. It is 2 years since our last conference, and my team has used that time to draw a comprehensive and challenging picture of Australian public attitudes to security, risk and resilience. I'll seize this moment to thank the outstanding team of colleagues and advisors who've done so much, who've worked so indefatigably over the past 2 years to provide this unique project as a resource for the nation, to help us know ourselves so that we can better face the future. The wealth of data and rich analysis in the community consultation reports, 3 reports we provide to you at this conference. Please don't spend the entirety of my speech reading them, but you will get to them, I'm sure. They will be the foundation for what comes next, your exchanges on how Australia can meet the challenges ahead. We want you to make the most of this national conversation and to make this indeed a springboard for a conversation the nation has to have. Evidence-based, respectful, inclusive, creative, empathetic, but without deferring the hard issues and without hiding from the difficult issues that our data has brought to the surface. Because there is public anxiety about security. There is national concern about unpreparedness. People do want to know more, including what they can do. Our conference, of course, could not be timed with greater relevance. Nobody here needs me to tell them about the global strategic context, which is disrupted, disturbing, dangerous. Doubtless, this vortex of conflict, economics, technology, energy, environment has more painful twists in store. If anyone here can precisely foretell the next shock, please come and work for us. Or maybe work for the government. Your country needs you. But core to our deliberations these next 2 days is not the craft of prediction and not the art of war, but the path to preparedness. How can our nation and our society, our distinctly federated, multicultural, middle-power democracy, located here in the Indo-Pacific but connected inextricably to a complex world, how can we be ready and resilient against a spectrum of plausible risks while holding together with cohesion and confidence? That purpose explains the rather eclectic agenda and the breadth and the diversity of participants in this room. Artificial intelligence will get, I think, its fair share of mention over the next few days as a source of security risk and perhaps opportunity. Before we put our conference program online, because that would have been cheating, I asked an AI language model to write me the program and select the speakers for an Australian National Security Conference. And I'm glad to say the answer was nothing like this. Many of you have joined us from around Australia, from every state and territory, some from remote communities, and especially thanks to those of you who've made it here from the far north despite the cyclone. Many of you do not do old school national security as your day jobs, but from local government or community organisations, the ground truth of Australian resilience. You are just some of the many hundreds of Australians who entrusted us with their views personally in the community consultations, the odyssey that led us to today's gathering, not to mention, of course, the 20,000 respondents to our surveys. Now, I appreciate the strong participation here also from students across this university, the leaders, as the Vice-Chancellor, the Interim Vice-Chancellor has pointed out, the leaders, but also the policy makers, the experts and the policy practitioners of tomorrow. And thank you to our international speakers who bring insights into proven ways of doing resilience differently, from Finland, from Sweden, from Singapore, Japan, New Zealand and elsewhere. I'm delighted that we are competing for attention this week, with such visitors to this town as Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, and Boris Pistorius, the Defence Minister of Germany, with the breakthroughs of a free trade agreement and a defence and security agreement with the EU. We see proof positive, I think, of the diversification of Australia's middle power diplomacy, which is a measure of resilience in statecraft. But international stability, like national security, begins at home. And our conference is fundamentally about Australia. So let's take a brief look in the mirror and turn to a few of the key findings of the community consultations. As I said, most Australians are worried about security. Now, importantly, worry is not panic and it's not even necessarily fear, but they do see multiple risks looming and they think the nation is underprepared. People want government to tell them more about what is going on. If we want security to belong to all Australians, the place to start is to speak with them, not at them. And that begins with listening, and that explains the work that we've attempted to do with great respect far beyond Canberra over the past 2 years. Our findings covered 3 waves of opinion surveys, covering adult Australians, more than 20,000 of them, representing every demographic segment, plus 8 focus groups and about 500 interviews, reaching urban, rural and remote locations in every state and territory. From this, we learned that citizens have shown strong judgment on everything from community cohesion to military threats, foreign interference to climate change, terrorism to disinformation, the downsides of artificial intelligence, to the risks, now today's reality, of crisis in our economic supply chains. The views of the public include plenty of common sense and logical analysis about sensitive issues, the kinds of issues where, for a long time, I would contend that the risk-averse option for government has often been to give the public jargon or silence rather than an informed two-way conversation. The number of Australians who say they are worried about the nation's security has risen rapidly, from a minority to a 2/3 majority between November 2024 and February 2026. And that was before the current Iran war and its impacts. Most Australians think the nation is in for multiple intersecting strategic shocks within the next 5 years, many with major consequences. War overseas, economic crisis, supply chain failure are just 3. Our data shows that Australians see security as about safety, resilience, and above all, the continuity of everyday life. They rate most serious the threats they already feel related to technology, economics, disinformation, climate, and social cohesion. A threat that many consider catastrophic, foreign military attack, is also the one most see as least likely, although a large minority consider it could happen within 5 years, and that itself is quite an extraordinary finding. The lucky country is not the ready country. On none of the 15 security risks we presented do more than 18% of people think the nation is very or fully prepared. And across 2/3 of the threats, more than half the public feels Australia is not prepared at all or only slightly prepared. Now, with all respect to the students of this great university, I know that if you go into your exam feeling only slightly prepared, you're not going to be very comfortable. Of course, government must set priorities, and people do not see all these issues as unmanageable shocks. A severe economic crisis stood out as the issue where people see the highest risk combination of likelihood and impact. And I guess a wicked question for policymakers is how to contend with potential economic crisis and the other security risks that our data has surfaced at the same time. Economic hardship was also a reason for fellow Australians to, in many cases, logically disengage from security issues. Our focus groups highlighted daily economic pain and a sense of anxiety without agency. And I know we have a dedicated session immediately after this one where we'll talk about the economic impacts or the economic implications of our findings alongside the societal implications. Our discussions also showed an appreciation of the communication challenge. Many people recognise that it is hard for government to tell the full story about security without causing panic. Even so, our surveys showed 53% of Australians think government shares too little or far too little information about security threats. Only 4% feel that government shares too much. The good news, and there is some, is that we also encountered a spirit of community strength across much of our dispersed and diverse population. And despite all the daily headlines about a divided and polarised community, there's some reassuring evidence of unity. Our surveys showed that most Australians want safe and peaceful communities as the foremost national priority, ahead of economic prosperity, ahead of democracy, and ahead of a more abstract strengthening Australia's security. And that's fine with us at the National Security College. Australians do not lack a sense of civic responsibility. In the aftermath of the anti-Semitic terrorist attack at Bondi last December, a national tragedy and atrocity, we asked people to what extent they consider that all Australians can do more to make our communities peaceful and safe. In response, 71% agreed, 32% agreed strongly. Only 8% disagreed. The word security means without care, or as Australians might say, no worries. That does not mean ignoring danger. Most Australians know, and our data confirms, that security risks are real. They doubt the nation is sufficiently prepared. They know the issues are complex, and they're open to knowing more. So this is an opportunity as well as a challenge. That's why we want to hear from you in the next 2 days, and please consider this the beginning of a larger national conversation. But let me talk a little bit about what we will do at the National Security College to build on the momentum of this project. Our main report lists national opportunities, openings for policy action, reframe security around community safety and everyday resilience, address the national preparedness gap through visible action and clear communication on plausible risks, leverage the credibility of trusted security agencies for communication, and interestingly our data does show a degree of trust in security agencies as credible voices on these issues, which means pushing for less political risk aversion in allowing agencies to engage directly with the public. Invest in national media literacy as a security adjacent capability. Our findings consistently showed that disinformation and a polluted information environment are near the top of the national security risks the population perceives, and amplify and magnify all of the other risks. Broaden who feels invited into the national security conversation, and acknowledge openly that this is an era of intersecting strategic shocks, or it's fashionable to say of polycrisis. In this era, sure, government cannot afford to treat every security issue as equal, but it can engage more openly in determining which risks can be addressed only through sustained attention and investment, and be more forthright with the national conversation to build that social licence, as we say here in Australia. With these opportunities in mind, there are some specific initiatives that the National Security College will pursue. These will be stronger if they are partnerships, preferably with other independent or civil society institutions, so take this as an invitation to collaborate. Our report identifies more than a dozen such pathways to progress. We will take our findings back to the communities. We will brief states and territories and local organisations around the country. This will help turn our consultation ecosystem into an enduring network. We will weave our findings and the ethos of community consultation into the many educational programs with more than 2,000 participants and students a year that remain the core business of the National Security College here at ANU. Our existing courses for federal, state and territory officials, for parliamentarians, for university students and high school teachers, and new courses that we will seek to build with local government and the private sector. We will conduct future research. With a longitudinal tracking program, we will turn what began as a somewhat ambitious one-off study into an enduring and dynamic national resource. My team will be grateful that perhaps the scale of that will not be quite as intense for at least the next few months. And we will commission further specialised academic research to better understand the distinct security perspectives of parts of the Australian community and to understanding emerging risks as well. So to academic colleagues here at ANU or elsewhere, we are open to considering your research proposals and partnerships. We will initiate research soon with partners in New South Wales and Victoria on the sovereign citizen movement as a source of national security risk. I think seriously understudied as a source of national security risk in this country. We will track the preparedness gap that our research has identified, working with government, emergency management and resilience agencies to correlate public sentiment against objective indicators of preparedness. And the public's concern about underpreparedness will be tested. Is it justified, or does it need to signal the way to a more open dialogue with government to reassure the public that good work is quietly underway? To coordinate all of this, we will establish the NSC Resilience Forum as a standing capability and a national hub within the college. This will ensure a small standing team for making our community consultations an enduring and evolving program in the national interest. And finally, I can announce a few new partnerships. One of the strongest findings from our conference reports that you're studying here today is that Australia's institutions cannot meet emerging challenges without deeper, sustained trust with our diverse communities. Trust needs to exist before crisis strikes. It is too late to build it afterwards. We will thus establish a research partnership on social cohesion, building on some of the key relationships established during the consultations and beginning with an exceptional institution based in Western Sydney, the New South Wales Service for the Treatment and the Rehabilitation of Torture and Trauma Survivors. This will allow us to work together in combining our new partners' cultural expertise, trauma-informed practice and deep community connections with the policy-oriented work of the National Security College, with the aim of producing research and teaching that can directly inform the way that institutions prepare, plan and respond to future threats to social cohesion, including from disinformation and violence. It will be about policymakers and experts learning from communities, not just studying or even consulting them. Our next initiative will be on media literacy as a vital element of national security. This brings together some of the opportunities in our reports to leverage credible institutions to support clear, accurate and trusted communication on security matters, institutions that can work between government and communities with independence and clarity. We also want to treat media literacy as what you might call a security-adjacent capability. Talking with one of our international visitors yesterday, Jussi Kosonen from Finland, the role of education and media literacy in national resilience in that country is not lost on us. Now, this is not a luxury, but it's a core component of national resilience in a world shaped by disruptive technologies, information manipulation, and a fragmented media landscape. The ability of Australians to interpret what they see and hear is critical to our democratic security. The college will act as a trusted bridge in that regard. Our aim is to help ensure that Australians encounter public debate that is informed, diverse and capable of withstanding the pressures of mis and disinformation and technological disruption. So I'm pleased to announce that we will begin a media literacy partnership with the Digital Publishers Alliance and the Sentiment Agency. This initiative will open new opportunities to strengthen media literacy through supporting newsrooms and digital publishers, particularly those outside the major cities, to access trusted apolitical expertise on national security, thus empowering Australians to better interpret security-related information and helping media organisations more generally engage with national security issues. There were some gaps in our community consultations. We focused heavily on civil society, on local government, on rural and regional areas, and we will keep nurturing those connections. But so far we've not done enough to connect with the corporate sector or indeed with the labour movement. So we will also establish a quarterly roundtable between leaders from the labour movement and leading experts on national security, co-hosted by the National Security College and the John Curtin Research Centre. And as a next step, we will begin exploring ways to establish a parallel dialogue with leaders from the private sector, beginning with boardroom briefings on the community consultation findings. So, a lot of work lies ahead. Bringing this conference together, like the community consultations, was a massive effort, and we had many quiet partners. As I said, you, our delegates, our extraordinary speakers, thank you, I think 90 speakers over the next 2 days, our conference providers, CONSEC, but very importantly, the Australian National University, for its readiness to host this public conversation on issues of profound policy relevance, alongside the university's priorities of research and teaching. I also thank the government departments and agencies that sponsor the National Security College under very distinct arrangements where we maintain academic independence inside the ANU. And I know that there will be some findings in our reports that those in the national security community may not necessarily find comfortable reading. So I thank the departments and agencies for their support. And I applaud my busy team at the NSC. They'll soon pause for breath because there's more to be done. Now, in briefing media, government, parliament and others on our findings, some have called them a bit confronting, a bit pessimistic. I see it differently. Security is a state of mind about engaging confidently with risk, and self-knowledge is a first step to adaptation and change in difficult times. So in that spirit, I encourage all of you to make the most of the next 2 days, a dialogue of substance, of frankness, of mutual respect, with a practical eye on securing our future. Let the conversation begin. Thank you.